Hello, I'm Dale Leftwich with RealAgriculture. I'm with Michael Landsberg, TV personality with TSN, and also a spokesperson with mental health. How are you doing today, Michael?
You know, I'm doing great because I get to come here to CropSphere and share my story. So yeah, I'm doing great.
Thanks for coming to Saskatoon to CropSphere to do this. It was a very interesting talk, and I think you could see lights going on all throughout the room as you were speaking today. And I guess want to begin a little bit with the idea of mental illness, and people have a hard time thinking of it as an illness. Like as you said, if someone's got a broken leg or something, it's pretty clear. But otherwise, this isn't.
Well, the problem is that you can't prove it. Right? So here I say to you, Dale, I say, you know, I have this illness called depression. And you say, oh, well, I hear that's really serious. You know, do you have any tests that you could show me? And I say, well, I don't have any tests. I don't have any X-rays. I can't do a biopsy or a blood test. I can't do an MRI. I can't show you any proof of it. And because of that, it's different than every other illness because there is no physical proof. Whatever I tell you, you have to believe. You have to take my word for it. And it's not that you think I'm a liar, but if you care about me, if you and I are married or I'm your kid or I'm your parent, you might say to yourself, oh, I don't want them to be really sick. So then you insert wishful thinking into it. So you go, hey, no, you're not so sick, or you're not so bad, or you seem like you're doing better. The problem is, like you said, broken leg, X-ray, hold it up to the light, and you go, oh, you see the crack there? I can't show you any proof.
So, and that pretty much was your experience when you went to see your family doctor, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. I have a candy in my mouth.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I wasn't apologizing, just so you know, Dale.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I went to my family doctor the first time, I heard a lot of what I now know to be the stigma. The stigma being, well, you know, you don't need treatment. You just need to find more fun in your life, or you need to relax more, or you need to do this or that. And that's 20 years ago now. And what I have learned over the course of 20 years is that that is the most disrespectful thing that you can say to someone with this illness. Because basically, it confirms in my head what I'm afraid. And I'm afraid that this is my fault. I'm afraid that somehow this depression that I have is a self-inflicted weakness. And when your doctor tells you, oh, you know, you should do more things like that, just kind of confirms for you that.
Well, a big part of where people are coming from often is that they think that, or we think that depression is being sad and just a little bit more sad. But there's a complete different sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Sadness can be a symptom of depression. So let's see if I say this right. Some people who are sad have depression. And some people who have depression are sad. But depression does not mean sadness. And for me, I would say that I'm very seldom, if ever, sad. It's a totally different thing. But because in the English language, if you look up sad with a thesaurus, you might see depressed. So they're kind of interchangeable. And that is a reflection of, we need a better word. You know, Dale, we need a better word than depressed, because as soon as you say depressed, people think sad. So if we had a totally neutral word that didn't relate to it, we'd be way better off.
Well, I think part of what you said was in there that was really interesting is the idea of a total absence of joy, which is quite different than being sad.
It is, and at the heart of almost all mental illness. And this is universal. I mean, you saw in there, I asked how many people haven't experienced this, and not one person put up their hands. And of all the speeches that I've given, and I've given a lot of speeches now, not one person has ever said, no, that's not me. We all lose the ability to experience joy. Not we all lose joy in our lives, because that could be a reflection of our situation in life. It's that you can't experience joy. It's that if you were suffering from depression and I gave you a check for $1 million, you would go, this is good. You know, this gives me security, this gives me all the things that would go with $1 million, but you wouldn't feel it. There's a difference between the part of your brain that acknowledges something like that and the part of the brain that feels something like that. That's depression. I know that check's a good thing, but I don't feel it.
And so as you're going about across Canada, like you kind of, I wouldn't say fell, but kind of stumbled or into this idea of becoming a spokesman.
Oh, I stumbled for sure. Yeah, I mean, this was not part of my plan. This was not, well, I got this problem and I'd like to share it with other people. I just lucked into it. I just lucked into talking about my struggle with a hockey player, and some people heard it on off the record and said, "Wow, it really changed their life to hear people talking about it." And I was like, "Wow, really? How did that happen?" You don't realize when you're in it that there's this massive stigma about mental illness. I mean, I never thought about it for a second because I never embraced it, right? I was never worried about sharing my struggles. But what I found out was that there's a lot of people who are in the closet, who are hiding from help, who are suffering. See, I mean, the worst thing about depression and mental illness is suicide, obviously. But there's other things that are almost as bad. And one of them is living your life without experiencing joy. The equivalent of being the walking dead. That's a tragedy too. Yeah. And you find that, when you go into a room, I'm pointing to the room now, and speak about it to a group of people, there's a pretty good chance there'll be at least one person in that room that it clicks with, and they go, well, you know what, maybe I will get help.
So again, as you came into this, you were depressed for 20 years before, and then you're doing this now. What is it that you can do to help people to actually reach out? Because that's the big thing, that people still deny that they're sick and they do not reach out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. The first thing is acknowledging the fact that maybe you're sick, right? Because as I told you before, it doesn't hit you like bam. It hits you like a tiny, tiny, tiny tap that changes you in the most minute way. So this can happen to us without us even knowing. I mean, lots of times I've gone to speak someplace and then afterwards someone will go, wow, you know what? What I realized was that I am you, that I'm experiencing what you're experiencing. Well, if you don't know that you're sick, then you're never going to go for help. And the next thing is to feel empowered by the words of somebody else, that you can go, okay, I heard that guy speaking, and he didn't seem ashamed or embarrassed, and he really didn't seem weak. So maybe when I was thinking I couldn't talk about this, maybe I can talk about this. And once you acknowledge that you're sick, and once you acknowledge the fact that you need to share this with someone, you're 2 huge steps closer to getting better.
Okay, I just really want to thank you for being with us today on Real Agriculture. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Dale, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.